In this episode of the Process and Automation podcast, Arno and Sascha will share tips for faster adoption of chatbot technology. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Process and Automation podcast with the Automation guys. Arno, what are we covering today in our episode?
Thanks, Sascha. So today we're going to look at a couple of tips we've compiled to really accelerate the adoption of chatbot technology inside your organization. Now, of course, there's a lot of hype out there with regards to chatbots, AI-driven virtual assistants, and all of these are really focused around, to drive better outcomes for digital engagement. And this is for large organizations, very small organizations. So this kind of whole new customer-centric way to interact with clients and partners and suppliers is really gaining a lot of momentum. And I think, chatbots is key to really enable us to move forward with that way of thinking. We want to have these virtual assistants that can enable this customer interaction to be very fast, to drive outcomes that's very quickly. And of course, all of this is driven by AI cognitive services that allows us to build really intelligent sort of interactions with our customers. So really, again, what we want to do is sort of just present the tips for faster adoption for this chatbot technology inside your business.
Great.
So that's the first point we kind of want to look at is so when you do this inside your business, you really want to clarify the purpose of the chatbots prior to adopting it, and you should have a really, really strong business case for this, and there should be a strategic purpose behind behind your adoption. And you need to have a very, very good implementation strategy, and you have to have really good business goals prior to adopting chatbots. And I think that's a key driver to the success of this initiative. So really want to look at four elements here. So the first of all, you want to look at the purpose. And this is kind of like a blueprint for rolling out chatbots. What is this purpose for bringing in this conversational sort of digital conversational agent inside your business? And what's the kind of the skills needed, for this digital worker or this digital bot to be able to interact with your customers? And the next sort of element of this is really what is the job that this actual chatbot needs to perform, and the experience we need to install inside this bot. Also, the third thing is we need to look at the content. So, what's the objective? What's the content that this will serve? What's the information it will provide? And also the fourth point is the interaction. How will this actually interact with end users that's at the other side of this digital channel, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think so. The next good point we can jump into is how we define sort of the key strategy and the metrics and how we can measure success. I think this is a key part. I think with any kind of project, with any project you're kicking off, so chatbot is not very, very different to that. So part of the deployment strategy in companies should be a well-defined set of metrics to measure that project success. So everyone need to understand where are we going to. Otherwise, you don't really know where if you have reached your your desired outcome. So yeah, and some of these key metrics you could look at are sort of the percentage of the reduction in resolution time when using these chatbots. So when it comes to sort of customer service, for example, the percentage of the reduction in manual effort. So so before, you had to maybe do a lot of work in Excel, copy and pasting, so if and responding to incoming requests via email and that kind of stuff. So how does this look like after implementing the chatbots? Percentage of incident resolved end to end through chatbots. I think that's a very powerful one to achieve. So as you probably have read as well in the news, or maybe have heard in our previous episodes, so some companies achieved 80% efficiencies or improvement in the end-to-end process. So it's something really to aim for. It's a great measure of success here. If you get that number very high, the end-to-end resolution through chatbots, then another measure is really the user experience and the satisfaction, because any new technology you bring in, it all sounds nice and fancy, but if the users are not really keen on using that technology, it's literally worthless. And so that's a very important factor here to look at and to listen really to the feedback you might get as well by implementing these new technologies. Then I think another sort of final really important measure here. So there are other measures obviously as well, but we think this is important. The percentage of users leveraging these chatbots as their sort of primary channel of communication. So if you plug these chatbots, for example, in MS Teams or Slack for internal facing scenarios, and your employees are picking this up to self-services with HR and all sorts of other areas, if this then becomes sort of your primary channel of communication, wow, this is incredible. So yeah, so here a few measures we think are important. So the list can probably go on and on.
Yeah, and I think the next sort of, I guess, tip is to start simple, but choose things that's got a very high impact. They always compare a chatbot to a very young new employee that's keen to learn fast and accelerate. And, you need to mimic that. You need to see a chatbot as something that on day one, you can start with something very simple. And as you then kind of grow the knowledge of that bot and be a bit more specialized, then you can also train it to field increasingly complex tasks. So you might have on day one a chatbot that automate very simple repetitive tasks such as HR FAQs. And of course, that's a very simple initial use case for it, but then you can grow the use case to do more complicated HR tasks. Now, previous episodes of this podcast, we have talked about use cases specifically in HR for chatbots, and then numerous. And I think the message here is that if you start simple, you choose the ones with a very high impact, you prove the technology work, and then from there on, you can scale that out and incorporate more use cases, more functional areas that chatbot can engage with employees with, and effectively kind of grow that into something quite large, but grow it on the fact that it is successful, it's very effective, it ensures that there's high degree of engagement, high degree of satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and and scale that out across your organization. So I think kind of starting small is kind of a big part of this, right? To test it out and prove it works.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think yeah, again, like with any other new technologies, you don't want to pick sort of with big goals in mind, but you don't want to pick sort of the most complex process and area you want to change and improve on. So enterprises need to really look initially maybe for what we call a minimum viable product, an MVP, so that can reduce yeah just the manual intervention by automating the bulk of this repetitive and tedious task. So, and yeah, as normal, prior to launch at scale, it is really useful to do this POC or pilot to demonstrate sort of usability and the impact internally. Was just a small use case. Arno mentioned a few earlier, and we talked about the HR services. Holiday requests, those kind of things are very easy. They're impactful because they are addressing nearly basically every employee in the business. But it does, so you can test that really nice here, and then during that pilot project, the chatbot can be observed, the conversations can be refined because so you have to sort of just structure the conversational flow a little bit, and then you need to see how the AI is dealing with all that kind of stuff. So all that needs to be defined, so it's all right in the context. And then once it's working, the productivity and sort of the efficiency criteria are met. Sort of success criteria we also discussed before. The chatbot can be then widespread into the organization, can be announced to everyone, and launched really everywhere, maybe in other regions of the company, in other departments. And then the successful implementation of the pilot will then be the basis to progress further and to really maximize that value of a chatbot technology.
Yeah, that's very important. I think once you get that first successful implementation under your belt, or of that initial pilot, that will really pave the way, and that will also be a very logical progression, to extract maximum business value, for or from this chatbot initiative. And I think it brings us to the next point. You have to think big, and you have to do that from the beginning. And and I think when you're trying to achieve this, the highest level of productivity using chatbots, it's important to identify sort of all of those processes and roles and customer touch points, for example, that can be automated, and to plan all of those future deployments in stages. It's always better to adopt a phased approach and to automate, processes using chatbots in different departments and spanning kind of different roles and different processes. And I think what you need to guard yourself is against this I guess this notion that exists within inside the enterprise, that's got this inertia to change. And what that means is that it doesn't want to change direction. It's down this track. You might try and bring new technology in, but because of this kind of organizational inertia, it doesn't want to change. So you want to guard yourself against that. And that's one of the pitfalls you need to recognize, when you deploy this, and that can really be avoided by using a sort of a two-pronged approach, in my opinion. So the first one is a sort of a top-down approach to drive this chatbot adoption from the business leadership, so it trickles down into the business units. And another approach is where you start from the bottom up, where you approach, I guess, the sort of the business users and make them evangelists of the benefits of chatbots, so they can drive adoption among senior employees. So that kind of goes up the chain. But I think that the technology is really progressive. I always say, that the art of the possible is extremely wide, and there's no reason why you should think big, although you can start small. you can still have those kind of like those big plans for this and those big initiatives already planned.
Yeah, and with all the excitement of this new technology out there, and if internally the team gets excited about this technology, it's also worthwhile to think about developing in-house skills on this chatbot technology and on that specific platform. I think that's sort of key. If you're kicking off, sure, you can kick off maybe with some implementation partners, but so as soon as you sort of out of MVP stage, I guess you want to have that capability in-house, and so that's a very, very important. Otherwise, it's not really worthwhile to really think about a long-term solution. So yeah, that's the first thing. So you need to really upskill you need to upskill your team and allocate the right time, give them the time to learn these new things, yeah, so that's very important, so that it can then be included in the project teams and do the tweaks during initial testing and during the pilots, and as well being as well an evangelist here and there within the business if they have these skills. So yeah, so one important thing to consider here is to ensure you're able to have that learning available from day one. So, but most of these vendors out there, they provide really good academies for that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think as we mentioned before, to setting these metrics to measure the chatbot performance and impact. So those things are really important to be done by the team who's looking after the chatbot solution, and I think and evaluate more and more of these training tools to create really the focused sessions UIT and the subject matter experts really need. Otherwise, you do your MVP, the implementation partner might leave because you don't have any sort of expensive or extensive budgets for the implementation partner, and then you're suddenly thinking about your training requirements. I think that's a bit too late. So to be really successful and to support this fast adoption of chatbot technology, that's also a very important point.
Yeah, sure. Very, very good tip. And I guess if you already got RPA deployed inside your organization, and perhaps you've got a RPA center of excellence, it's a very good springboard to actually leverage to get chatbots embedded inside your organization as well, because a lot of the center of excellence lessons learned and the center of excellence practices extends to chatbots as well, from an RPA perspective. And I think you should really, if you do have an RPA center of excellence, you should really try and kind of align those two together. And again, a center of excellence will help you to prioritize the processes that has got a very big potential for this conversational automation, and also to ensure that they are deployed in a way that's got a high degree of quality, compliance standards are met, for example, and it also is deployed in a way that allows for coordinated communication with all of the various stakeholders that's involved inside these projects. So again, I think if you're in a good position where you have got a RPA center of excellence, because of course that's a good framework to govern the rollout of these automation projects. Try and use those best practices of your center of excellence, and try and use those best practices for rolling out your chatbot projects.
Yeah, very good indeed. So the next important part is all about change management. The introduction of new technology, can have different impacts within the organization. Some people are, some employees are really hyped, and they are very happy that robots are taking over. So this is what lots of people feel, but others are, definitely. Maybe not so happy. They don't understand that. So although businesses are really now focusing on this idea of a virtual assistant or a chatbot,
Yeah,
so some concerns are there that it might reduce headcount and costs, or definitely headcount. So I think reducing cost is not necessarily a concern, but reducing the headcount is. And I think it is important to emphasize when we implement chatbots, that is all about the sort of the overall customer experience, and the values we give our customers, and internally actually and externally, productivity goes up. So that should be sort of the main focus, and not is nothing against humans. So the reality in future looks like, so that the companies of the future looks like we have processes where we combine people, AI, and bots. I think that's what's already happening more and more, and we have to sort of understand that and maybe accept that. But with proper change management, it is very crucial from the start, really. To get people on board and to avoid that resistance of any
yeah,
initiative we might start, because if as soon as you just put this in, you just tell everyone you have to use it, people will not use it. You will see this in your metrics. There's no user adoption. People will write a lot of bad messages on internal chats, and
yeah,
then all that investment and all the time you spend on it, because some areas of the company thought it's a good idea, so that investment is going to sort of nowhere. So it's as I mentioned, very very important to make that clear. It is helping people during their job, so they have more time to get on valuable activities, more meaningful activities, because we can automate more end to end, and
yeah,
they are really working on the meaningful stuff. So that's a very important part in any kind of digital transformation project, to not leave your employees behind. Yeah.
yeah. Well, like they say, these virtual enterprise assistants are support to human interaction, not a replacement for it. And I think that that's really true. I
Absolutely.
think that if you have got proper internal communication on what the chatbots are there to do, and that it's an assistance, and ensure that message is very clear to employees, employees will be on board with the positive sort of nature of the adoption of these conversational automation sort of initiatives you're running, and the benefits to themselves. It's going to make their day job easier. It's going to sort of free them up so that they can focus on more productive work throughout the day. And it kind of brings us to kind of the next point in this top tips to bring chatbots into, or to drive adoption for chatbots into your business, is really to give a chatbot a personality, right? Because if you give a bot a personality, it really helps a user to connect with it on an emotional level. And so we have to have these personality attributes that's kind of like assigned to these bots, to complement the user's personality that will interact with it, and also the user's needs, and the way they interact with the bots needs to be reflected in the interaction styles and of the services these bot offers. And I think that we talk about human behavior, and I think that if you look at the usage and usability and the usefulness of these virtual assistants, it really directly impacts the user's ability to achieve their life goals. And and it can be a really good primary motivator for the user to use these chatbot services, especially if there's something of value that's on offer. And if the bot's personality is favorable, and people like interacting with it, then they will use it, right? If I think that the conventional bots that we used to see prior to, I would say, the intelligence bot we see these days, people used to interact with it. They didn't like it because they know it was a bot, and they know it was useless because it couldn't kind of provide them the information they need. But these days, because it's sort of very intuitive, it's AI driven, it's you can make it very friendly, you can give it a recognizable name, it provides the outcomes that the users want, and people pay attention to it, that it is this personal assistant. It's not like this old, the Microsoft clip that used to pop up in the old days on Windows, and it says, I see you want to write a letter, can I help? No, that's just pre-programmed stuff, and it's like, just go away. Whereas with this, you can actually give it a personality. A lot of people actually give all of their bots, specifically in HR and finance, names, and it sort of just gives authenticity. And I think the ability for a virtual assistant to respond authentically is actually very important. And I think that you must use this to your advantage to kind of like drive that adoption, and to make people engage with it, right?
Yeah, indeed. It's if they have a nice name and have maybe even a nice image on the chat window, it doesn't look too technical, then it works quite well. Maybe that's nothing what IT really cares about. IT probably cares about other stuff when implementing this new technology. So very often with these platforms, these days they are low code driven. So sometimes you could kick off as a stakeholder in the business. You kick off a project potentially without IT, because you don't need, in a traditional sense, developers anymore. So we talked about this whole low code movement in all different areas of intelligent automation. So this really helps to get the journey started and to get to result very fast. But that shouldn't mean that we are not speaking to IT anymore, because at the end of the day, if something doesn't work, they will definitely be involved, because the system needs to be supported. And very likely, these chatbot technologies, they are not standalone like a low-code web application or so. So chatbots are only good when they connect to internal systems a lot. And for that, obviously, we need to install it properly. It needs to have proper governance around it. What can be done with this chatbot technology? Everyone needs to know about where it's integrating. Obviously, security is a big concern when it comes to chatbots. So it's very important to foster that collaboration between IT and not just IT, as well as other subject matter experts within the company. And only if we work really in a team, have this internal collaboration working, then it will be a successful go live later on as well. And it will be supported and everyone will be happy.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. And I think, the main takeaways from the session is really that these virtual assistants are playing a increasingly important role in customer engagement. And, more and more businesses out there are exploring the use of this technology to increase employee satisfaction. And like you said earlier, Sascha, we are seeing an explosive growth in the popularity, with up to 80% of companies out there already using virtual assistants or planning to implement it, in the next kind of year or two. And despite all of this popularity, there are aspects to consider when you implement conversational technology using chatbots. And training a virtual assistant is not really different to training a human employee. You just need that time and investment, and you need to invest that into the initiative, to ensure that you get those outcomes you want. And you need to start with a very clear strategy and set up that key metrics like we touched on earlier to evaluate the success of your initiatives. And you need to mobilize the right people. You need to mobilize IT, the subject matter experts, and all of these people needs to engage to build this minimal viable product and to start learning, this learning experience to demonstrate the usability of chatbots. Even if the impact is initially at small scale, you could scale that up. And from there on, you could further expand this initiative across the organization. And, you need to ensure that you communicate and embrace the benefits of what these virtual assessments can bring to your business.
Mm.
And of course, like we said, don't forget, give each of your chatbots a personality, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, then it will be a success. And if you like sort of the sound of chatbots, and you're thinking about this, hopefully these tips to get a faster adoption of chatbot technology were helpful. Hopefully you can take 1 or 2 points from this podcast episode today. And if you like to learn more about chatbot technology and need a helping hand, reach out to myself or Arno. We will obviously put all the information again as always into the show notes. And I think it's an exciting technology, and I definitely we encourage you to have a look at chatbots, and we're looking forward to all your feedback and all your questions you might have. Visit our website, theautomationguys.net, to leave your feedback and submit your suggestions, or post on LinkedIn, that kind of stuff. We are everywhere on all the social channels, and we're looking forward to all your comments. Unfortunately, that's it again with this episode of the Process and Automation podcast. If you liked this episode, please give us a 5-star rating, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss any upcoming episode. We hope you will tune in next time, and until then, let's automate it.